On to our next unit. The next unit we will be doing is our poetry unit. Before we start our next unit, what would you define poetry as? Well, poetry is another form of literature. Poetry allows someone to express their thoughts and feelings in a creative way. Now that we have defined poetry, let's discuss the different parts that make up poetry. What are some key terms you can think of for this unit? There are many different key terms that could be defined in our poetry unit. However, I have limited our key terms down to these 8 terms. The first vocabulary term we will discuss is stanza. A stanza is like a paragraph in the way that it divides the poem into sections. Free verse is one of the types of poems we will be writing during this unit. This type of poetry does not have a set rhyme scheme or a regular meter. Poems are told from many different points of views. In first-person point of view, the story is told from one character's point of view. Second-person point of view is when the reader, you, becomes a part of the story. Third-person point of view is broken down into 2 categories, limited and omniscient. Third-person limited is when the narrator only knows the thought and feelings of one character. Third-person omniscient is when the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of every character. Rhyme scheme is the ordered patterns of a poem. The last word on the line determines the rhyme scheme. Meter is the rhythm in a poem. Now let's put our new knowledge to the test. There was a wise old owl by Leanne Gunther. There was a wise old owl who lived up in a tree. He sat upon a branch, so all the world he'd see. He looked at a snake, he looked at a bee, he looked at a mouse, but he winked at me. Let's answer these questions about the poem. How many stanzas are in this poem? There was a wise old owl who lived up in a tree. Could this be a stanza? If you said there were 4 stanzas, you're right. Does the poem have a rhyme scheme? Do any words rhyme? Yes. The rhyme scheme is A, B, C, B, D, B, E, B. Does the meter of the poem change? There was a wise old owl. He looked at a snake. Yes, the meter did change. For my students who have been in my class for the past years, you probably know what the Poetry Slam is. But for those of you who are new to my classroom, you may be wondering what the Poetry Slam is. Well, Poetry Slam is a fun-filled event that is held every year after we finish up our poetry unit. During the poetry unit, every student will choose a few of their favorite poems they have written to share in front of their peers. The first poem we will write will be an I am poem. Let's work on our first stanza. I am. What are you? What are 2 words that would describe you? I wonder. What are you curious about? I hear. What do you hear? Be creative. I see. Who or what do you see? I want. What is something you want? I am. Repeat the first line of the poem. Great. Now let's work on our second stanza. I pretend. What do you like to pretend to do? I feel. What are you feeling? Happy? Sad? Excited? I touch. What do you want to touch? I worry. What is something that worries you? I cry. What makes you cry? Or what makes you sad? I am. Repeat the first line of the poem. Finally, now that we have finished our first and second stanza, all we have left to do now is write our third stanza. I understand. Understand what? I say. Hello? How are you? What do you say? I dream. What have you dreamt of? I try. What do you try to do? I hope. What do you hope for? I am. Repeat the first line of the poem.